Good evening, Lisa.
Good evening, Andrew.
Forward Mr Grainger, which seems to have a comma on the DVD menu, but not actually on screen.
So not then.
So not. But we open. Mr Grainger's got a customer, and he says, "If the shoes pinch, bring them back."
Yes.
You got some shoes.
I got some
today.
new boots today. Yes, they don't pinch. They're all snuggly.
Have you tried them?
I've tried them. Yes, I've walked around a little bit in the house, but I haven't walked any distance.
So they don't need to ride up with wear.
No.
But he's going to sit in his chair now.
You can sit in his chair and have a little rest.
And have a snooze. And Mr Humphreys is saying about his home life.
Yes.
And his mother's staying with him.
Yes.
Well,
I thought they lived together.
I was going to say, previously we've said about he's coming home to mother and he's talked to her.
There is no continuity.
And there's something about his father.
His father's never been mentioned before and will never get mentioned again.
Yeah.
Because there's a story in one of the later seasons that he thinks Mr Grace is his father.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten that. Yeah. Oh well, that's made up then.
Well, but it's a comedy series, so. Probably when they wrote it, they didn't think that anybody's going to be watching it in 40 odd years' time
and noting down all the tiny details.
The things they've got wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, she's what was it? The other night she was sitting behind the curtains looking at the neighbours
with the curlers in. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's got some strange phone calls.
Yes.
Including
two heavy breathing and one wrong number.
Yeah. That's what all that was about. But she phones, doesn't she?
Yes.
And he says about his pyjamas are in his zip-up teddy bear.
She wants to sew a button on his pyjamas.
Yeah.
So his sewing kit's in the piano stall. His pyjamas are in his teddy bear in his canopied bed.
Yeah.
Inside, because you could get pyjama cases.
What's a canopied bed?
Like a four-poster, I suppose.
Oh, right, okay.
And he says, if you're going to put the stew in, take my slippers out, because these slippers are in the oven.
You had to sew a button on my trousers,
I did that
didn't
sew
you?
button on
Real
your
trousers, not pyjama trousers. But Mr Lucas thinks it's all a bit weird, keeping your pyjamas in a teddy bear. And Mr Humphrey says, where do you keep yours then? Oh, inside me basil brush.
And you probably, nowadays, I don't think you get pyjama cases, but you could. I think I had a pyjama case. I think it was a teddy bear, and it had like a zip or Velcro at the back, and you'd undo it and put your pyjamas inside, and then do it back up again, and your teddy bear or whatever went from being really skinny to really fat.
Okay. Get overeaten. Cut to Mr Rumbold's office, where there's a new secretary.
Yes.
Who apparently is simply called secretary.
Yeah, she doesn't get a name.
As far as we can tell.
She's an unnamed child.
She's not a child.
She's definitely not a child. No, she's got attributes.
So who's this playing?
Isabella Rye.
Now I was going, I've seen her somewhere before, and I couldn't put my finger on it.
So we just looked it up. And she's sort of the hostess on Joker's World.
Is this the very first edition of Joker's World? Yeah.
Well, it's either the first few series or at least the first series. And all she does is turn the numbers over and simper next to
How do you
next
simper?
to Barry Cash. He does all this. And she's got an impressive décolletage.
Yeah, right. Captain Peacock sort of...
Yes,
he's first, like when she gets close to him, good God.
Well, no, she's bending down and then she stands up and her chesticles are at the right height, aren't they, for him, so...
Yes, but she was previously with young Mr Grace, but apparently she wasn't doing him any good.
Now, after his last heart attack, the doctor decided it wasn't a good idea.
But, she quite likes Captain Peacock, actually.
Yeah, she's a bit flirty with him.
Yeah, she says he's got a David Niven moustache. And saying he's young to be a captain, because her dad was 60 when he became a captain, but that's a sea captain, isn't it? Yeah. Yes. He points out he was in the army.
And he's much younger than that.
Mr Harmon comes in with some milk on a tray.
On a tray, yeah. Because Mr Rumbold likes a glass of milk, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Let's hope it hadn't been sitting around as long as Hart was milking the gunfighters.
But yeah, Captain Peacock tells him to get out of the office, and he says, "Well, you've got no jurisdiction over me. There's only one person that can tell me to get out of the office."
Yes.
And in comes Mr Rumbold and says, "Get out of the office."
And he gets out of the office.
So he gets out of the office. And this is a FYEO meeting for your ears only. So secretary leaves. Peacock is distracted because she sort of waves at him bit or something, doesn't
she? She sort of sachets out and then waves at him.
Yeah. But yes, this is about Mr. Rumbold, who's going on a 1-month seminar to Swansea.
That's going to be really expensive, surely.
Well, I thought, yeah, for a company that
as mean as Grace Brothers.
is really mean to pay for a 1-month seminar in Swansea. But I thought you can't have a seminar about management that lasts a month.
No.
Unless the only thing I could think of is that they're actually holding it in Welsh, and he's going to spend 3 weeks learning Welsh so he can have 1 week of the real seminar.
I don't think that's what it is.
But we've been to Swansea quite a few times.
We have been to Swansea. It's a very lovely place.
Yeah, for Doctor Who conventions.
Yes.
So I just wonder which hotel he stayed in.
We wouldn't stay at the hotel we stayed in. They didn't exist then, did they?
Not the Marriott, maybe?
No, because
the Marriott was the first one we went to.
And then we stayed in the...
is it the Village?
The Village
Inn?
Hotel.
Yeah.
No, because I think they're quite new, because they're on the...
development
on the water,
bit.
yes.
Yeah. Right, that's true.
They're still developing it, because I know you wanted to try and get through somewhere once, and we couldn't. It was
Because
blocked
they've
off.
still got
We had to go right round.
fences up and stuff, yeah.
It took us twice as long when all we had to do was just literally walk straight down the thing to get to it.
Yeah, but Mr. Grainger's going to take over, and Peacock's
Brussels.
bit put out of this. And Mr. Rumbold said, of course, you're the natural successor in 10, 15 or 20 years.
Time, yes.
So,
He's not in a hurry.
yeah, but this is basically to sort of give Mr. Grainger a higher pension and things like that, isn't it?
And a bit more kudos.
It's just temporary.
Yeah.
But when it's announced, Captain Peacock has to look surprised.
Yes.
Yeah. Mrs. Slocum says her pussy's like an alarm clock.
Yes, he wakes her up at 6:15 every morning by dropping a clockwork mouse on her pillow.
And she's got to have a game under the sheets.
Have a game under the bed.
Yeah.
Well, under the bed, I don't think under the sheets.
Well, yeah, game under the
Bed.
whatever. What colour have we decided her hair
I'm
is?
still not sure. It's
You
a
said sort of peachy, but
it's not.
it's a bit
quite
darker
like,
than
it's
that.
Darker. It's
Peachy, orangey,
it's
browny.
peachy. Well, it's not brown. It's a peachy sort of orange. It's not.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, it's not a light. It's not a yellow. It's not bright enough, and it's not a sort of deep orange. It's quite a light.
This is why we need Martin, because he'll be able to tell us what
it's quite a
colour
light
it was.
colour.
Grainger's asleep with his head against the
The
sort of
cabinet.
the shelving or whatever.
Because Mr. Rumbold and Mr. Captain Peacock come out and call them all over, but Mr. Grainger is asleep.
And apparently, Mr. Lucas says he's carrying out an investigation. He's listening for woodworm in his drawers. He gets called an impertinent monkey by Mr.
Grainger.
Mr. Grainger. And then Captain Peacock has to act surprised through
Which
through
he
all
does
this.
very badly.
You know, it did remind me of was it Uncle Albert acting surprised?
Oh gosh, yes. Not yet.
All that, and,
That gets funnier every time he does that.
Yeah.
We'll have to do that episode sometime.
but yes, so yeah, he's told he's going to be in charge, and he gets told, don't forget to take your spare teeth.
Yes.
Mr. Humphreys.
And he says to Mr. Humphreys, would you phone Mrs. Grainger and let her know? And Mr. Humphreys says, you can do that. You've got a phone in your office.
I've got an office. And Mr. Humphreys, of course, is to take over from Mr.
But nobody says to Mr. Lucas, can you take over from Mr. Humphreys?
No. But the tape measure is like ceremonially handed over, isn't it?
Because he won't need that in the office.
And Mr. Humphreys looks longingly at the end, thinking about how many inside legs it's done.
Yeah.
But it's all very exciting for Mr. Grainger. And a glass of water for Captain Peacock to get over the shock. What was it? Something about Mr. Humphrey's hair as well, or something.
Yes. Yeah. I'd be pulling my hair out.
He says, what was it, that thin bit is...
Mr. Lucas says we wouldn't have much, that wouldn't take long.
He says that's where the pillow rubs at the back.
Yes. The rest of it is lustrous and...
But yeah, Mrs. Slocum says about Mr. Slocum.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we don't get Mr. Slocum mentioned much. I think he's only been mentioned...
I think he's mentioned once,
Once before. It's being flat on my back in Hyde Park, is it? Or something like that.
But yeah, he used to go out at 9:30 with his briefcase and umbrella and go to the park feeding the ducks. And when asked why, he simply used to go.
Yes.
Because this Captain Peacock's been doing that, so he knows...
He knows the reason
what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, young Mr. Grace phones up to talk to Mr. Grainger, having...
Mr. Rumbold, first of all.
Yeah, well, Yeah, because he thinks he's going to talk to Rumbold, but he's already forgotten about it. But Mr Grainger's gone to the chief accountant's office, Mr Patel, asking for a rise.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's got the right idea already.
Yes.
Young Mr Grace realises who the secretary is and has another turn on the
Yes.
phone, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And the drinks trolley is pushed along the
across
floor
by Mr Harmon,
by Mr.
who
Harmon.
does everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's literally to save money, so you don't have to get another actor in. But Mr Harmon does everything. He brings tea, he brings the drinks trolley, he brings the stock up.
Yeah.
It's like, it must be a very small staff.
But yeah, Peacock's not happy about him going across the floor, but he says he hasn't got any helium. So he can float along on the balloon.
I like Mr Harmon because he's a bit sort of
He's
cheekier.
less abrasive
He's
than
less
Mr.
abrasive than Mr. Mash. Yeah, he's a bit
yeah.
sort of cheekier than Mr. Mash.
But yeah, Captain Peacock wants to leave early, hopefully an hour early. And it's useful to have a friend in the camp.
Yes.
And Mr. Humphreys agrees with that.
Yes.
Yeah. Humphreys and Lucas are after a temporary raise because there's 2 of them doing the work of 3. Though the argument is that they're going to get more commission.
Yes.
Not that they seem to have any customers.
No.
The phone goes, it's Mr. Grainger, Captain Peacock's to go in.
Yeah, so Mr. Captain Peacock.
And it struck me that Mr. Grainger's sort of turned into Churchill.
Yes, a little bit here, yes.
Because he sat behind the desk with his whiskey and soda, his great big cigar in his hand. He tells secretary to get her skirt altered. I'm going to call her secretary.
Okay, yeah. That's her name.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's Miss Secretary, the secretary.
Miss Secretary, the secretary. Yeah, he tells her to get her skirt altered, make it shorter.
Yeah.
But yeah, send him in. You know, did you smoke, Stephen? Have a cigarette. He's got a box of cigarettes. Can't offer him a drink. It's not allowed for junior staff.
No.
Can I go an hour early? Oh no. How many times does he say no?
Quite a lot.
But yes, half an hour early? No. So yeah, although he says how what a good job Peacock is doing and how valuable he is, you know, times are hard.
Yeah, and margins are small.
Yeah, pass the whiskey, and before you go back on the floor, put the cigarette out. Peacock's cross, but he sort of covers it up a bit, doesn't he? He says, "No, I didn't really need it. Time off." And Grainger comes out, and he wants to look at the sales books.
Yes.
Mr. Rumbold's never looked at the sales books, but I am not Mr. Rumbold. Mrs. Slocum, can I have a word? No, get back to your counter. And now he's sort of been a bit of a sod now.
He is a little bit, yes. Power's gone to his head a little bit.
Yes, you can either go back to your counter or go upstairs and collect your cards. Yeah. Mr. Humphreys is down on his usual total. Though he's not too hard on Mr. Humphreys, is he?
No, he likes Mr. Humphreys, so he's a bit nicer to Mr. Humphreys.
But Mr. Lucas is told he's very messy and he must do better. And he says, should I take 100 lines? He's just told, don't be cheeky. So yeah, don't mess with Mr. Grainger when
he's in full power
in a position of power. Mr. Humphreys is reminiscing about when he was in the Navy for a week and he had the captain's cap. But yes, he sort of adjusts Captain Peacock, doesn't he?
Yeah, he pulls his handkerchief up a little bit and adjusts his flower. And
Mrs. Slocum asks for an hour off in the morning to get her
roots done.
And
he says not in the
firm's time. And she said, well, it grows in the firm's time. Would half an hour? No. Well, silly old goat.
You said, when I'm going to get. Yeah, she says, when am I going to get the gun? Then you silly old goat.
And basically, she's told she is discharged.
Yes, dismissed.
Yeah, and everyone's told to be on time tomorrow. And Mr. Humphreys and Mr. Lucas do a bit of a salute, don't they? Involving a stiff arm.
Yes.
And that's all we'll say.
That's all we're going to say. Yes.
But yes, so next morning. Everybody rushes in. The sparrows have been pecking at Mr. Humphreys' gold top.
Apparently.
Mr. Lucas hasn't even been to bed yet, so he claims. I don't know what he's been up to.
No.
Mr. Grainger turns up really well dressed. He's got a
Yes.
sort of scarf, executive bowler, a sort of cane with a
like
silver
an extra
knob.
grand coat as well, isn't
Yeah.
it? So.
The full things. And Captain Peacock rushes in, sort of clutching a coffee, and he's told that he's late, and there'll be an adverse report on his record.
Yes.
And everyone is told to pull your socks up. And then just then, the lift doors open and
Mr. Rumbold
Mr.
appears.
Rumbold is back. Oh dear. Apparently the water tank burst and the seminar's been cancelled. Mr. Grainger is to go back behind his counter. His cigar's thrown to the floor.
And stamped on.
And the bowler hat is jumped on by Mrs. Slocum.
Yes.
So everybody's showing how unhappy they are. He gets the tape measure back and he has Mr. Humphries tells him to blow his nose because he's like very upset, isn't he? They put sort of like moisture around his eyes as well, haven't they? And you don't like it from this point on, do you?
No, they're a bit mean to him now.
Because it, cut to in the canteen and he's saying, "I've been a fool. Could you pass the sugar?" And they've got this big bowl of sugar lumps, haven't they? So everybody has
a couple of
lumps till it gets to Mrs. Slocum, and she
takes-
just pours the entire lot in.
Yeah, that would be horrible.
Yeah. You say they're just being mean.
Yes.
And he says, "Am I being sent to Coventry?" Coincidentally, somewhere else where we've been.
Yes, we've been to Doctor
Convention. It says two places.
We did get sent to Coventry.
Yeah, and he says he's got an empty, broken heart.
Yes.
And the audience go, "Ah."
Yes. Yeah, because he says, "Oh, am I being sent to Coventry?" "Oh, I am." I say, "I am being sent to Coventry." And he says, "Coffee's bad for the heart, anyway."
And Mr. Humphries is like really upset,
He is,
isn't he?
yes. He
And
cries.
frankly, so's most people.
Yes.
Mrs. Slocum is.
Yeah.
Despite calling him a rotten old basket. I think it's actually Captain Peacock that's the sort of ringleader of this, isn't he? Because he doesn't seem to be that sympathetic, but everybody else actually is. Then Mr. Rumbold comes in and says they found a hotel in Edinburgh.
Yes.
Good grief. Aren't there any closer hotels?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Perhaps they need to get away from everything.
Yeah, maybe. So Grainger's back in charge, so everybody realises they're late back from lunch, rushes back.
Or two.
From or whatever, gets told they're 5 minutes late. He tells them all to go to the office, and they're sort of worried again. And he says, "You're going to get a drink." And then the title sequence is everybody with a glass in their hand of some sort. There you go. Forward Mr Grainger.
Yes.
So
I mean, it's a nice one for...
it's a good character.
It's a good one for Arthur Brass. It must have been nice to get one written solely about his character, well, virtually solely about his character, and to give him a bit of character progression. But I don't like any of them where, because there's one later on where Mr Humphries is accused of being a thief.
All right.
And it just, as I said to you, you watch Are You Being Served for a bit of escapism.
Yeah.
So to have all this nastiness
Is it a little bit too real?
It's a little bit too real. You get that in the real world. You don't need it in Are You Being Served. It's not what you watch it for.
But no, I appreciate it when they put people in slightly different positions.
Yeah, I understand.
Because it sort of shows hidden sides of their character, I think. I do think, it is a little unrealistic for Mr Grainger. I don't think he'd turn that immediately.
No.
I think he'd be more sort of out of his depth for the first few days. He might go that way, but I can't imagine the first day he'd be like laying down the law quite that. But that's the joke, isn't it?
Yes.
That it just instantly happens. But yeah, because isn't there a Mrs Slocum one?
Yes, Mrs Slocum, senior person.
Yeah,
it's a sort of, it's not a rewrite, but it's a very similar story. Mr Rumbold is taken ill.
Yeah, all right, okay.
Which he takes over.
But yeah, I quite like anything to do with Mr Grainger.
Yeah.
I know they're a bit mean, but yeah, I think he's he's come back, isn't it?
Yes.
That's the point.
Yeah.
But yeah. I enjoyed that anyway. So what's the next one then?
Fire practice.
Fire practice. We'll see that again then. Okay. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Say good night then.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.